What's up, YouTube? False back with another reaction video today. Today, I'm reacting to Tim Pool from Timcast IRL. We're going political today, people. Today, we're reacting to a short segment from one of his full-length podcasts called "Illegal Immigration is Making Life Unaffordable for Regular Americans. This is destroying the U.S." So we're gonna watch that, give our thoughts. Feel free to comment in the comment section. Speak your mind, speak your opinion, and let's get into this video.
I actually have a tremendous amount of respect for people who are willing to traverse miles through desert, dozens or hundreds or thousands of miles, because the dream of America is so incredible. But it's got to be a legal process.
But it's not even the dream that's being sold to them anymore. It's just you're being offered free stuff now. You know what I mean? This is not the American dream, and I'm suffering so much in this country, and I'm willing to traverse through the desert for an opportunity. Like you said, it is now systematic. You're going to have a better life as soon as you get here. It's all set up for you. You know, I met a journalist that found the dumping point where they're being told to dump all of their IDs.
Yeah, I've heard about that too. That's crazy.
Dumping their IDs because they're being told to. She had 3 bags filled with their IDs. And then they were handed these pamphlets from the UN, by the way, which was beyond bonkers. She showed me this pamphlet that was coming from the UN. And they're being told to do this to come into this country because they know that there are politicians that are setting up an entire system for them where their lives will be better. So this is not the same mentality. People that are coming at the border right now.
See, stuff like that is why I kind of understand why some people are like, it's not always good to be a part of the group when the group are doing things like that. If that is true, that the UN is actually telling people how to cross our borders illegally, no matter what you think, it should be a legal process, follow rules like everybody else in this country is expected to and is held accountable by those standards. Nobody should be able to do that and get away with it, despite what you may think.
We have to let go of this idea that they're just these suffering people who are willing to do anything for an opportunity. They're just being offered handouts at the expense of the
It's like an assembly line to bring them in.
Free healthcare and free
everything.
So,
lottery
I'll use it to segue. One of the things I've heard quite a bit, many people back in my hometown, Chicago, have said,
he's from Chicago, so am I.
My groceries are
cool
too
to know that,
we
Tim.
just went to Hy-Vee grocery store out here. It was great, but yeah, it was expensive. I mean, I got 3 things of salami. I always love buying salami and cheese dip. A couple things of heavy whipping cream with our coffee. 4 grocery bags. It was 300 bucks. To be fair, we got some.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I know they're a little bit more expensive, but I was surprised.
I literally got 3 things at the store myself the other day. It cost me about $20.
Chicago, particularly when I went to visit home, they're paying people rent. They're putting them in hotels.
Yep, that is true. As a Chicago native myself, that is true. They've been putting them in hotels. They were living out the police stations for a while.
The immigration issue that many people are feeling is the economic hit they're taking. We're paying taxes that are supporting all of these flights.
It's true.
They're bringing in hundreds or thousands. These buses, they're being paid for by the American taxpayer, while the American taxpayer suffers and can't afford to pay rent.
Yeah, and I think actually that's what makes this a nonpartisan issue. This should actually be a slam dunk issue for a side. This was your hometown, Chicago. I didn't realize that. I visited the South Side of Chicago earlier in this campaign, which is a very traditional campaign. South Shore.
Yeah, I know. I'm close near the South Shore area.
And really, so we grew up.
It's Midway Airport. 2 blocks away.
All right. Well, good deep dish pizza and all that. You know,
that's tourist food, bro.
There's something to
like. Well, that's the tourist stuff.
Art of pizza. Yeah, but that's what I am when I go. I mean,
that's true. Please, for anybody that's not from here, just know no regular Chicagoan eats deep dish on the regular. That's really a tourist thing or like a special occasion thing. We have tavern style pizza here. It's the best.
we don't get to go to Chicago every day, so we pick some on the way out. But you know, it was interesting where it was a room full, you know, maybe like this one, a little bit different ethnic composition. It was 95% black, 150% Democrat, as they told me before you went. Maybe that's how they count their votes. but anyway, it was interesting, right? The first part of the exchange was contentious because the people came with some questions that were, I think it was some people who had some real animus to me in that room. One woman, she asked me a question, walked straight out because she didn't like my answer on racial reparations. But actually, things changed pretty quickly when we got to the question of illegal mass migration, where they're literally converting the local high school into an encampment for migrants at a cost of $7,000 per migrant per month, when the people in that community, Americans,
That's crazy.
are asking the question, what about me? And actually later it came up. Somebody else asked me on their own. I wasn't bringing up foreign policy. Why are we sending our money to Ukraine? Almost challenging me like I was a person who would, presumably because of being a Republican or whatever, believe that this was a good idea. And I explained that no, this is actually a very bad idea. We should not be doing this. And we actually left.
Sorry, I want to pause real quick right there. I know I'm pausing kind of a lot, but I don't want to talk too much over them, but I just want to say this real quick. The thing with the whole sending money over to Ukraine and the Middle East with all that, in my opinion, I feel like, first off, if you're a politician and you want to do that, justify to us, the people, why that's a good idea, why our interest should be over there, and why it matters to American people that we should sacrifice our tax dollars, our money, our benefits, whatever form that takes, from whether Social Security, IRA, all that type of stuff, whatever. Why it's in our interest to send our money over there to people when it's not affecting us.
Left with a lot of common ground on both of those issues, which is why I think it's actually very important not to see the America First movement through the prism of even the Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party means very little. It doesn't mean anything to be a Republican. Well, it doesn't predict what you mean based on foreign policy. It doesn't predict what you think about free speech. It doesn't predict what you think about national security, state overreach. So that label means a lot less. But I think that because of what you just said, people, I mean, it's expensive right now. People are struggling in this country. This is something that should cross partisan lines, racial lines.
That's
An
true.
opportunity for us to deliver a landslide election in 2024, and a landslide minus some shenanigans is still a win, which I think is something we have to prepare for, and that's kind of my whole MO in this thing.
I saw several polls. Many of you may have seen them. The youth vote swinging towards Donald Trump. That's pretty shocking. But I have to imagine if, from where I grew up in Chicago, I've got my relatives talking about, they're talking about building physical encampments, taking a whole area in the South Side and building a camp from scratch.
Yeah, they're talking about the tent city over here.
Doesn't everybody remember that? And you're like, I was supposed to get paid, $8 an hour. I worked X amount of hours, and then you look at your check and you're like, where's my money? And then all the older guys laugh and they were like, look at the tax section.
It's called theft.
Now imagine, that's right. Now imagine
That's how I was when I
16,
got my
17,
first check.
kids working their first job or whatever, get that first paycheck. They see how much money is taken from them, from their hard labor. They work their fingers to the bone. And then at the same time, on the news, your tax dollars, $7,000 per person per month. We're talking about $84,000 a year for free to people who are not from this country, who have not worked for this country. And you, hardworking young man, have a third of your income taken by the government to give to them.
And maybe it's because we have a $34 trillion national surplus to spend on this. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually a $34 trillion national debt.
That's
We're
terrible.
already in the hole. And so
I didn't even know the
anyway,
national
I do
debt
think
was like that.
The silver lining in this is that the more we kind of talk about this through classical Republican versus Democrat, fire Biden kind of mentality stuff, which is super boring and not the right way to look at this election, I think the more we're going to fall into the trap of getting another 50.1 election where we're playing tug of war and MSNBC's trotting out the winner 6 days after the ballots are cast. That's not the direction we need to go. I think there is a movement that transcends partisan and racial boundaries. I think it transcends national boundaries right now too, in many ways what you see in certain other countries. But in this country, I can get 75-80% of this country agreeing on many of the things we're talking about right here.
Hypothetical, you get elected, day one, what do you begin doing to help alleviate the stress on the economy and the average person, to help them increase their standard of living and better the economy?
Yeah, look, I think that there's some very basic things to do. One is the easiest thing you can do to alleviate both the national debt and the economy at the same time. There's a lot behind this, but I'll just get to the punchline. Get the oil and natural gas out from underneath our ground. We know how to do that.
Okay.
Sell it and buy down about $8 trillion of our national debt. That takes us from 34 to 26. Next.
Okay, that's reasonable.
A lot of foreign wars in Ukraine.
And that creates jobs too.
National debt. Now our national debt problem, $7 trillion was due to Iraq and Afghanistan, and I don't want to be on the track to do the same thing. And then initiate a mass firing, not a chisel, but a chainsaw style firing
Afuera.
Of 75% of federal bureaucrats.
Hmm.
Start that on day one. That is, of every 4 people there, 3 of them will be gone. Definitely by the end of the first term, and preferably sooner. And problem is, when you got a bunch of those people showing up to work who should have never had that job in the first place, they start finding new things to do. A lot of these
Yeah.
writing regulations that Congress never authorized, which is acting like the wet blanket on the economy. And my first action as it relates to the regulatory state is any law that Congress didn't actually pass or specifically instruct an agency to write a regulation for, it's my view and the current Supreme Court's view that it's unconstitutional. Rescind all of them and state on day one we're stopping enforcement of those regulations and view them as null and void. That grows as
Hey, that sounds reasonable.
supply of housing. Think about housing. We have land use restrictions. We have EPA restrictions that are limiting new housing construction. Increase the supply, brings down the cost, grows the economy. Energy, unlock the supply of oil, natural gas, coal, nuclear energy. Increase the supply, bring down the cost, grows the economy. Stop paying people more money to stay at home instead of to go to work. Increase the supply of labor. Most small businesses, the hardest thing they find right now to expand is to hire new people to fill those roles. So even before I get to reform of the Federal Reserve, which is a favorite topic of mine, that's not a day one item. Just literally day one. These are the kind of steps we can put into motion. And yes, I think we get back to 4% GDP growth, possibly 5% GDP growth.
It could be even
Right,
better. We might land magnitudes of growth because what we're going to do is transform into a hydrogen-based fuel economy. Here we go. They figured out at Rice University how to.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, they take chemical.
That is interesting. He needed to hear that. But he's not. But I think that
they figured out how to make it profitable to make hydrogen. Essentially, this has been the entire time. It's like it costs too much money to make the fuel. They figured out you take any carbon trash. You hit it with a laser called flash joule heating, 7,000 degrees for 0.1 milliseconds. And it turns it into, you can get hydrogen and graphene as a byproduct, which you can use as a building material to build.
That's pretty cool.
Roads, to enforce your roads by making them 3 times stronger. It's 200 times stronger than
Please do, because the potholes in Chicago, oh my God.
For every kilogram of hydrogen you produce with this process, you get about $4.50 of graphene. Now we can sell the graphene. You can also take the oil that this would displace. Technically, a hydrogen economy might displace the oil. You can turn the oil into graphene, so we can keep pumping it and we can keep selling it.
Now, as esoteric as that may be for many people, the core fans of the show have heard it a million times.
Is that right?
I think the actual simple message, though, is innovation in the energy sector.
Yes.
Beyond just oil. It could be hydrogen. It could be fusion. I mean, there's big breakthroughs there. Nuclear energy.
You can pump the hydrogen through the natural gas lines of the planet. So we've already got an infrastructure. The guy's name is James Tour at Rice University. I'll put you in touch with if you want to go.
I would love to learn more.
You're going to say something?
No, I was just going to talk about nuclear energy in terms of one of the main obstacles to this. And this, I think, to the extent that this involves actually what exactly the laser accomplishes, but is it sort of splitting of the nucleus?
It's electricity. Oh, what do you?
I think that it would not fall within the NRCs and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
No, it's not nuclear.
Yeah,
this process. It's physical breakdown.
Just physical breakdown. Got it. So I'll have to learn more about that. But I'm talking about at least the production of more kinds of energy in the United States, including nuclear energy. Again, one of the obstacles is the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And again, the right answer is you can't reform these agencies. I think the right answer is to get in there and just shut them down one by one.
Hey, that sounds like a plan to me.
No,
Well, I would say
what happens outside? You trying to say fuego?
Is that what he was saying on this?
I mean,
when
I'm sorry, you could like throw it out.
when
Right?
no, when Millet was
All I'm
pulling
saying is,
things off the wall, yelling afuera.
you know,
It's outside.
I've said this many times. If I have
That's
not
what he said.
made
I
Javier
don't repeat
Millet look like a moderate by the end of my first 3 months, I haven't done my job. All right, so I like the guy. I actually been following for a long time.
Goes around with a chainsaw. You know?
I
Yeah,
think it's one of-
chainsaw first, chisel second.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that got me excited about you just as a candidate was just it's remarkable to me that we have all of these people that are running and they make it seem like being America first is something that's dirty, like it's something that's wrong. And I just could not get over all of them parroting this point that we could do both. Right, that drove me crazy. I wanted to scream as I was sitting there. Yeah, we can do both. We can take care of the Ukrainians and every other country.
No, we can't.
Look around you.
I hate that
Look
narrative.
around you. Does it look like we are successfully doing both? Have we been successfully doing both? I mean, this country has been in a steep decline, and a large part of it is because what ends up happening is what we saw on that stage and what we've seen just throughout this entire election process is just people are bought and paid for, right? And the people that they tend to sell out are always the American people. We're told that we have to feel bad, we have to put ourselves last. It's always an American last perspective.
Yep.
And so it's just been exciting to have you get up there on the stage and everywhere that you've been going, and you've been doing so many podcasts. Without question, I think everyone can agree that you have been the hardest working candidate this election cycle. I've seen you everywhere. I mean,
I appreciate it.
Obscure podcast. It's really wonderful. Just the work ethic is so impressive. And you're young, and I'm a mother of 3, and so it was something that was very important to me. And I'm just kind of showering you with the compliments here, obviously.
I appreciate it. Okay.
But
Thank you for
that is something that's very scary for me, because when we talk about even the process of illegal immigration, you think about it as a parent. This is also going to become issues down the line when we talk about the violence that is going to be imparted in inner cities. This is something that terrifies me. Something that terrifies me. You have unchecked people coming into this country. We know that they are coming from countries where the cartels are running things. We have no idea
That's
who is being
true.
brought into this country at this moment. As a parent, that's terrifying.
Yes.
And I just think a lot of the candidates are not willing to talk about these issues in a way that it provides clarity to those of us that are worried about the future.
Because it's uncomfortable truths and it
I think
upsets
most of the
people.
candidates are really
Like the truth
scripts
mostly
provided
does.
to them by their super PACs or the people who fund.
Mhm.
I mean, I think that's effectively what American politics has become, for the worse. And I think you got to be willing to say, I mean, it's sad the system works this way, but our families put over 25 million, close to $30 million into this campaign. There's going to be more going in. That's what it takes to run presidential elections. Even still, it's hard to compete against the super PAC industrial complex, where the amount of money being spent on television advertisements by the like of Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, but it's not really them, it's the super PACs. That's the real cancer on American politics. And the super PACs culture selects for candidates that just make them vessels for advancing what that super PAC industrial complex wants to advance. And so one of the things I think, again, this is an opportunity to go beyond traditional partisan boundaries, building towards a Reagan 1980 style landslide. You got Ukraine in that category. You got the southern border in that category. I think we should be favoring ending super PACs, not by violating any First Amendment rights, but by just saying that, you know what? If there's a $3,300 maximum that you can give to a campaign, that's what it is in the GOP primary. That's a lot of money, but it's not enough to corrupt a politician who's running for president. That if there's a super PAC that's donating to presidential candidates, if you're donating to that super PAC, you should also be capped out at $3,300 per person. I don't think that that's too much to ask. This used to be a left-wing idea, actually. I think that right now we're in a place where the Republican Party absolutely can and should embrace it. I think it'll be wildly popular, and again, part of building towards an 80+% electoral majority, minus some shenanigans, is still a decisive landslide victory. But anyway, I think that's what's going on, is you kind of have candidates, when you start to think that they're actually advancing their own convictions, we're kind of missing the point. They're vessels for advancing what the donors really want to wield.
That's true. Somebody gives you $1 million, you know that's not just for free. They expect something in return.
An event at the state capitol earlier today. Sounds like an esoteric issue, maybe, but it's not really, because it affects every American. Is they're building a carbon dioxide capture pipeline across this state that we're in right now. They make a lot of ethanol in the state. They say capture carbon dioxide, build a pipeline across the state, and then bury it in the ground in North Dakota. Why? No one really knows why, other than the fact that our federal government's providing subsidies in the name of fighting climate change, because carbon dioxide is a bad actor. It doesn't make any sense. Carbon dioxide is plant food. So this idea of removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere being some sort of worthy goal, I could go on for a full day about why that's
from the little bit I know about a little bit.
Our own taxpayer money.
I mean, I know it's poisonous to us, but if it's plant food, unless you're trying to use it for some type of farming initiative, I don't know what the point of that is.
Of farmers here, rights to use their land. When most Iowa farmers who I've met do not like that being built across their backyard. So I could go a little bit longer on this, but the point I'm bringing it up is not a single other Republican candidate, not a single one, has expressed opposition to this carbon capture pipeline. Why? Because the most powerful people, at least in this state, as it relates to the Republican donor establishment, do not permit you to oppose the carbon capture pipeline.
Interesting.
And so again, it comes back to that mega money in politics.
Could we go a little bit deeper here? Because you mentioned the Federal Reserve just a little bit, and this is an institution created in 1913. That's a quasi.
Epstein didn't kill himself.
Around like it's
I like that shirt.
Bank when it's essentially not. Thomas Jefferson said that he believes banking institutions are more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. With their corporate bailouts, with the inflation, which is essentially a tax on the poor, a theft of resources from the poorest people in this country, and the Fed, yes or no?
I would like to, but that requires legislation. I make promises that I will keep as your next president. And here's the promise I'll keep with respect to the Fed, is a 90% headcount reduction at the U.S. Fed, combined with restoring effectively a single mandate, one purpose.
Okay, what's that?
Peg the dollar to commodities, stabilize the dollar as a unit of measurement. It should be just a basic function of arithmetic and nothing more.
Okay.
And again, part of the problem is you got those 23,000 people or so at the U.S. Federal Reserve now that we don't need to do that narrow function of pegging the dollar to commodities. They find things to do. That's where the central bank digital currency comes from. That's where a lot of these other, the CBDC, which is a backdoor way of ensuring the government surveillance system of being able to wipe you out for doing something the government didn't approve of. That's how you get to raining money from on high like manna from heaven in the aim of balancing inflation and unemployment. It's like the equivalent of hitting two targets with one arrow and missing it both. So hopefully that answers.
Well, so thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with.
All right, that was interesting. A lot of food for thought. We're gonna do it all here. There's nothing we won't watch or do or play or talk about here. Um, so that was pretty much the whole video. Yeah. So like, share, subscribe, comment in the comment section. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, guys, and we're out.